Okay, welcome to episode 2 of Ben and Matt's Marvellous Journey. I am Matt. I am with Ben. Ben Phillips, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm decent. I'm decent. I had the day off work and I saw Star Wars, which is going to date this episode of the podcast after I just made a joke about how we didn't want to do that.
I mean, they don't know when you saw Star Wars.
That's true. I saw
Star Wars
super late, everyone.
Star Wars will probably be out in cinemas for about 2 months after it's hit.
Yeah, it will never be on DVD, anyone. No, it never will. So, this is Ben and Matt's Marvellous Journey. We are taking a deep dive through the history of the MCU, culminating in the 10-year anniversary, which conveniently enough for us will be when Infinity War is out. So, we did Iron Man, that was episode 1, and it's now time for episode 2, and the hits keep on coming, everyone. It's time for The Incredible Hulk. Which,
2 movies in, 2 movie studios.
Yeah, released a month apart.
I will say, in the history of it, the fact that Marvel was starting this universe, the fact that the second movie that ties into it is from a different studio entirely is kind of historical.
Yeah, it's a weird one. This is Universal. As we know, Paramount were helping them distribute the early Marvel films before Disney bought it all. But through weird legal magic, Universal have maintained distribution rights for Hulk in perpetuity, which is why there has not been a Hulk film since this one. I don't understand how it works. I thought you had to be actively making a film within a certain amount of time or you lose the rights, which is what happened with some of Fox's properties. Apparently not for Universal.
I don't know if it dates back to a TV show or something like that. I don't know if they were involved. I'm probably talking at my arse.
Well, that's what we do here. We talk out our asses about superhero movies.
It might even be because they're using the Hulk character in movies, the rights don't revert back to Marvel at any point.
I don't know. I just know it is a weird outlier in the whole history of the MCU where, will it as the fans might, it's not really going to happen anytime soon because Universal... I think it's something to do with theme parks as well. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway... So it was literally released 1 month after Iron Man, almost June 13th, 2008. You know, we had sort of talked about superhero movies at the time of Iron Man, and you know, we are still a month away from The Dark Knight, and what had come before wasn't necessarily always amazing. Like the Spider-Man films were out there, you had X-Men doing some stuff, but you know, there had been a lot of shitty films with superheroes in them. And then came Incredible Hulk and it fixed everything.
I mean, it's coming off the back of the 2 years previous to this are probably the point where people were starting to go, oh, the superhero bubble is beginning to end. Like in that first incarnation, because Batman Begins didn't do crazy money. Like people liked it, but it didn't do insane.
The best of the Nolan trilogy, though. Yeah, I mean, if you take Spider-Man 2 out of the equation, like 2004, you had Punisher, Catwoman, Blade Trinity. 2005, you had Elektra, Constantine, Fantastic Four, and Batman Begins. And you got V for Vendetta, X-Men: The Last Stand, Superman Returns, Ghost Rider, Spider-Man 3, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. That's not a good run for comic book movies at all. Oh god, and the year before, Ang Lee's Hulk and Daredevil.
Yeah.
Man.
The early history of comic book movies is not good. I don't understand. Why do we have such affection for these things?
Yeah. And also, I would like to point out, people like to talk about this fad of comic book movies. Go check out the timeline. They've been here all along. It's just they didn't sort of permeate culture to the degree they do now. But I mean, I just reeled off a list. All these movies were coming out. Like there were 4 comic book movies a year for many, many years. It's just now you see this Marvel logo constantly and people are so enthusiastic about it that there has to be a back. Anyway, I'm triggered. So The Incredible Hulk made for a budget of $150 million. That is 10 million more bucks than they spent on Iron Man. But hey, CGI, I guess.
I mean, also, at this point, Hulk is, of the Marvel characters that Marvel had the tangential rights to, probably
easily the most famous.
The most famous. Like, if you exclude Spider-Man and the X-Men as cultural stuff, then Hulk he had that TV show in the 80s.
Very popular. I remember seeing several episodes of it as a kid. They all seemed the same. He would get into a dispute with some bikers, Hulk up, and then wander off sadly, at the end of the
I mean,
episode.
it's also just amusing, like, how indebted this movie is to that TV show.
Yeah. 100%. They openly, as a statement of intent, wanted to make it more like the TV show and less like Ang Lee's vision.
But, like, they have Lou Ferrigno is the Hulk.
Yeah. Bill Bixby's in this.
Bill Bixby's in this, and they use the music.
Yeah, they sure did.
Like, it's very weird that they kind of, like, I guess the only superhero that you could kind of compare it to in terms of having that iconic previous version that people keep on wanting to hark back to is Superman. Because Batman keeps on reinventing himself.
Yeah.
Whereas
Superman... No, Ben. Christopher Nolan invented Batman in 2005. Did you not know?
That is true.
He's always talk like this. You know,
there were no Batman stories before 2005.
No, he's never smiled once in his life.
But yeah, with Superman, like, obviously people keep on coming back to, like, the John Williams theme song and kind of the stuff that Christopher Reeve was doing, and this is the first time that kind of Marvel have dipped into that well of saying, like, we have a previous incarnation of this character and we're gonna
we were saying off air, this is kind of the first reboot other than maybe Batman Begins, and certainly the first reboot that Marvel would do. I mean, it's the second film Marvel would do, but you know, we have a reboot 2 films in kind of. I haven't seen Ang Lee's Hulk in a very, very long time. Like, I think easily 10 years. I don't remember it being amazing. But, yeah, they were not fans over at Marvel. There was a sequel planned that I think Zach Penn was involved in.
I think this was supposed to be a sequel, or, like, to get into the beginning of the movie. The beginning of the movie brushes over basically the kind of intro plot to that first movie.
Yeah.
And you could conceivably see the events of the first movie happening before this one.
Yeah, I think it's termed as... it's like a soft sequel. Like, it's not quite a reboot, it's not quite a sequel. I think they called it a requel or something like that, so that's gross. It's not that what happened in Hulk didn't happen, it's just that it's not... You don't have
to know about it.
Yeah. Anyway, right, so, I mean, I've got many notes for this, but obviously... Ang Lee's Hulk, like, they were planning a sequel in 2005, then Marvel Studios starts to exist. As Ben pointed out to me, the big loan that Marvel took out was not eligible to be used on this or Iron Man, so they had to spend their own money and not that loaned money from Merrill Lynch. And they paid to make it. Universal got the distribution rights, obviously. They bring in Louis Leterrier, I think, because he's French, so I'm going to say it's Louis, not Louis.
Yeah.
But maker of fine films such as The Transporter, Clash of the Titans, Now You See Me. That's one of the worst filmographies I think a director
I'm really sad that I saw 3 of his movies in cinemas in a row.
Oh, why?
Starting with Hulk, I saw Clash of the Titans in cinema. Clash of the Titans is worse than this.
Yeah.
And then Now You See Me, which is worse than both of those.
Yeah. It's his best movie, Unleashed. Like, that's not great.
I don't know. I've got some affection for The Transporters.
Yeah, I like the first one. Anyway, he wanted to do Iron Man. He got given Hulk because Jon Favreau impressed him so much.
Was it Iron Man he really wanted to do? Because it feels like you watch this movie, he wants to do Captain America.
Very funny. Zach Penn writes many, many drafts. Zach Penn, who wrote X-Men 2, yay, X-Men 3, boo. Elektra, boo, has some story credit on Avengers, yay, is writing Suicide Squad 2 and Ready Player One. So he's kind of all over the place as well.
And Pacific Rim Uprising.
Yes, so I only have so much room on a line.
I mean, we both watched a trailer for Pacific Rim within the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
Because the actor from it is in another movie that's a little bit bigger.
A little bit. It's weird hearing Vince Staples so much these days.
I keep on telling you whenever I hear him in the trailer.
He's
just
in
like,
so many
Vince Staples.
Just these fucking hipsters out in California editing these movie trailers. Yeah, Zach Penn writes many, many drafts. He then departs to go work on a different film. They cast Ed Norton as Bruce Banner. And because Ed Norton is Ed Norton, he demands some creative control, and he rewrites the script. And there is to this... Well, I don't know if it's to this day, but there is a debate about who wrote the film. I think Ed Norton basically said he rewrote the whole thing, and Zach Penn's like, nuh-uh.
I mean, I'd reckon it's probably one of those things where, like, the structure is there, but maybe, like, the dialogue was, like, completely rewritten and stuff like that. But, like, when you're in a movie and if you get brought on, or when you're casting people, you can't exactly go, we're going to rewrite the entire structure of the movie, and then people go, like, but we've got sets and we've got all these kind of things. Like, you can't exactly go in there and say, I'm not doing any of this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the Screenwriters Guild sided with Zach Penn, who is the only officially credited writer for this movie. But Ed Norton came in and turned in a redraft within like a month, which is crazy. Yeah, and they were heavily inspired by the old TV show, and both the director and Norton, huge fans of the Hulk growing up, they claim, and they were citing all these comics. Now, speaking of comics, this is the part where Ben shows off his crazy, insane brain that needs to be studied for science, and all of the comic book knowledge he can store within it and summon up like that. So, let's talk about the Hulk. Like, we kind of got into it a tiny bit there, where, I agree, like, in a world pre-Marvel just being everywhere, and now everyone knows every superhero. Like, the most recognisable ones, obviously, your top level are the DC trinity of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, but then you've got Spider-Man, you've got the Hulk, you've got the X-Men generally. I'd say that's kind of your big...
I mean, if you like, you go up to the 2000s, I'd say that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Like, it's the characters that got live-action TV shows in the 60s, 70s and whatnot, and it's the ones who got those animated shows in the 90s and kind of bled into pop culture. But, like, it's weird for a company as media... Like, as Stan Lee was trying to get these movies made and trying to get these deals made, DC were having no problems having their characters adapted in all kinds of actually decent ways, whereas Marvel was very much struggling on this until Blade in 1998, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hulk is, it's yet another Stan Lee and Jack Kirby creation. We will be hearing a lot about their creations as we go across all of these movies.
Ben has a hill to die on, and I invite you all to hear him die on it.
I will not be dying on it this movie.
No.
This movie is perfectly legitimate in having Stan Lee in it,
Yeah.
but my hill to die on will come up in future movies. Yes, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created him in 1962, so it's a little bit after Fantastic Four. It's basically Stan Lee doing that thing where he looks at things that exist in the world and then going, we should make this into a comic book. So in this case, it's Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
And the concept of like nuclear fallout and fears about radiation and all of that.
Yes,
that was all very trendy.
true. But yeah, I mean, that is Stan Lee's kind of one gift, is kind of distilling pop culture iconography into even more pop culture iconography. Yeah, so Incredible Hulk, he's never been... In the comics, he's never really been that kind of like huge breakout star. Like, he was in the Avengers for a little bit, but then he left because it's kind of difficult to have the Hulk in the Avengers. Mm-hmm. There's some, like, a couple of runs that are kind of, like, famous. I think the most famous, obviously, is kind of Peter David's run, where he done, like, Joe Fixit and stuff like that back in the 80s and the early 90s. And then the most famous run, kind of, like, in the run-up to this, that will be relevant in future movies, is Grant Pak taking over and doing Planet Hulk and World War Hulk and stuff like that. But Hulk is kind of one of those ones where the interesting stuff from Hulk is kind of, oh, look, he's a different colour now, or there's not much... There's people who can tell good stories of the Hulk, but most of the time Hulk kind of exists as that, like, B-tier Marvel Comics character. Even as he progresses in pop culture and becomes the more recognisable one, he's very much, like, not someone that you expect Marvel to build an empire around. No,
it's a very weird one. Like, I don't dabble to the degree you do in comics, but I haven't read all that many Hulk stories, because it's just not... It doesn't scream out to me as something that begs reading. I've read Planet Hulk and World War Hulk. Like, those were much bigger stories, but it's kind of a thing where, like, they nailed the page one pitch, and then it's like, I get it. And when they stray too far away from what made it what it is, people don't like it. But you can't just keep doing the same thing, because, I mean, the version that they revert back to when they're scared is Bruce on the run in the American Southwest being chased by Thunderbolt Ross. Like, and occasionally they get cute with it and like, oh, Hulk and Banner are separate people, or Amadeus Cho is the Hulk now, or something like that, and then they just get scared.
I mean, but even then, like, the most important, like, the thing they do quite often is like, what if the Hulk was intelligent, or what if he was always the Hulk, or what if the Hulk was like a person? And they've done the variations on this so many times, and they've done what if there were multiple Hulks, and obviously some of them have stuck. Like, She-Hulk is in many ways a better character than kind of Bruce Banner is. I would much rather, at this point, I'd really love to see a She-Hulk movie, because I do think there is interesting stuff that you can mine there.
She's a lawyer. She practices law. Green in like little pencil skirts and stuff. I'm gonna do my. If you want to read a comic book that is refreshingly different, Charles Soule's run on She-Hulk from a couple of years ago is absolutely fantastic. It's literally, what if we hired a lawyer, an actual lawyer in real life, to write She-Hulk? And there's all kinds of legalese, and it's still a superhero story, but it's really, really good. Some off-kilter art. It's not mainstream, but it's still good fun. Isn't it funny how when they hire these people that do the job of whatever it is they're writing about, it turns out they're quite good at it?
Yes.
Like Tom King and yeah. Anyway, yeah, so that's Hulk. Like, he's incredibly well-known culturally, but there's not much doing in the comic landscape. I mean, I'm sure it sold well enough to continue to exist in perpetuity, but it's a weird one. I mean, to this day, he's kind of just spinning his wheels. It's like, yeah, Hulk exists, I guess, but we only bring him in when we need a huge like action thing in a crossover.
Yes.
But that did not stop Louis Leterrier, Zach Penn, Edward Norton, and the good folks at Marvel Studios from giving this the good old college try. What happens, I hear no one asks, because we all know what happened, but I'm going to tell you what happened anyway. As Ben mentioned, they kind of distill Hulk's origin to the opening credits of this film. So Bruce is already the Hulk when we start. He's living in Brazil, keeping a low profile, working at a bottling factory. He studies meditation to stop himself from hulking up. He hasn't had a transformation for like 5 months or something. And he liaises with a mysterious Mr. Blue on the internet, or the dark web, as he attempts to find a cure for his condition. A drop of his blood gets into a bottle, and Stan Lee, in perhaps his most sort of important to the narrative of the film cameo to date.
I think it's maybe one of my favourite cameos of his.
Yeah, it's pretty good. He drinks the bottle that Banner bled in and gets gamma poisoning, and that leads Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross and his team to the factory, and they attempt to capture Banner with the help of Emil Blonsky, who is a crazy human being. They fail because Banner hulks up and runs. He sort of realises he has to go back to where this started in a way to get more samples and whatnot. So he makes his way back to where he transforms. He ends up meeting Betty again, his former girlfriend, Thaddeus' daughter. Oh, the conflict. Her new boyfriend tips them off that Hulk is back, Banner is back, and they try again to capture him. This time Blonsky's had some of the super soldier serum, or the modern attempt at it, put into him. He still gets his ass kicked. So Bruce and Betty go on the run together. They meet Mr. Blue, who is a very weird human being. They successfully test a cure, which stops Bruce from transforming, but that allows him to be captured. Blonsky then demands that Mr. Blue give him a dose of Banner's blood, because, that's the obvious solution to why you're not the Hulk. And sure enough, he turns into an abomination, as the hammy line suggested he would in the film. He goes on a rampage. Only Hulk can stop him. They have a terrible-looking fight, and they break Harlem, which is canon. And then Hulk runs away, and as the film closes, we see Bruce Banner lives in Canada now, and he uses a meditation technique to deliberately raise his heart rate and become the Hulk, which is all mysterious. And then, in definitely the weirdest post-credit scene that Marvel have done, Tony Stark shows up in the bar that Thunderbolt Ross is drinking in and says he's putting a team together. Let's just talk about this right now. I was going to save it, but it's fucking weird. So, firstly, yes, this kind of makes the MC, for realsies official. These films are crossing over. It's not just Nick Fury showing up in Iron Man. But this doesn't make sense. Is Tony offering Ross a spot on the team? Is he offering to catch the Hulk for Ross? Are they trying to recruit Banner through Ross?
Maybe he's just he's just bragging. He's like Ross is just saying they're putting a team together, and it's like, oh really? Am I going to be involved in it? No,
you're not.
No, you're not. I mean, obviously there is eventually payoff. Kind of. I mean, years and years down the line, there is some level of payoff to this scene, but this is the first and definitely not the last time that Marvel does a thing and then there is no follow-up on it whatsoever, or any follow-up on it is dropped in about one line of dialogue.
Their willingness to completely drop an idea is remarkable. But they have the power to indoctrinate the audience and be like, no, that was never important. Forget it.
Like, it's. I mean, this is probably one of the first moments of rule of cool. It's like, how can we get Tony Stark into this movie? And it's like, well, we'll do it this way. And it's like, cool. Yes. How does that tie into another one? And then they're like, well, we can't do it in such a way that will confuse the audience if they didn't see Hulk. Which, obviously, a lot of people who saw Iron Man did not go see Hulk.
No. Well, I mean, this thing made less money than Iron Man. About half as much, $263 million to Iron Man's $585. Who knows what the home DVD sales did, but yeah, not as popular as Iron Man. Was actually reviewed quite well at the time of release, which is odd to me, as every sort of ranking of the Marvel films that has existed since then puts this either last or near the end.
The thing is, I can see, like, the average rating on Rotten Tomatoes is 6.2, and whilst I'd probably go a little bit lower, I can still see it being like, it's like a 6 out of 10 movie.
I mean, if you compare this directly to, say, I don't know, Elektra, or I don't know, Daredevil, or I don't know. Exactly. I can keep going.
It's better than those.
It is better than those. Again, I haven't seen Ang Lee's Hulk in a long time. I assume this is better than it. Probably.
There are some people who defend Ang Lee's Hulk because Ang Lee Hulk's more interesting visually. Like, Louis Leterrier is not the first time, because obviously Jon Favreau is not the most visually interesting director in the world, but you kind of get the feeling that there is a trend going on here where they are hiring actors who can get in and get out without leaving a personality on these movies. And that obviously works for Marvel because it means that they can factory produce these movies and they feel like they're part of the same thing, but it does kind of leave some of the nature of them feeling a little bit hollow.
It makes Edgar Wright quit his job, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's just, I think, like, there are reasons why the Ang Lee Hulk movie is better, and there are reasons why this is better. Like, I think this movie has an actually really good Act 1.
Yeah, I mean, we're legally required to talk about this by Mike Thomas, who owns The Real World. I think he'd literally watched the opening act 6 times in the last month, he's told me, which is the action of an insane human being. But
it's a really good Act 1.
It is. It's like, I honestly, I look at it, it's like a Bourne movie. It's like, we're doing like surveillance and like the dark web, and dudes are like sliding cameras under doors before they breach, and it's like, what? And there's a huge chase scene. And
every time I watch this movie, there is about a good 20 minutes where I sit there and go, maybe it's better than I remember. Maybe it's not going to turn to shit because of just how caught up I get in that kind of like this first scene.
Yeah. It looks different, it sounds different. I think the score at the beginning of this movie is excellent. It's lit a lot darker than all the Marvel movies, I think. Like, I don't want to say this, but it looks like a real film, in air quotes. You know?
But like, it also helps that there's none of the Hulk bullshit.
Yeah. Oh, wait, you're saying that in this film about the Hulk is not interesting?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Controversial statement, I believe.
I think the best Hulk moment in the film is the first appearance where he's like a movie monster in the shadows. Yes,
but then that is done better in the next appearance by Hulk.
I have written down Joss Whedon would replicate and do it better. Yeah. I mean, they tricked everyone. It's like, we're just doing an Ed Norton spy thriller movie, but no, it turns into a Hulk film.
That's the thing, that's the thing, is like, I would, if they did like the full movie of it being Ed Norton on the run and trying to not turn into the Hulk, like you Iron Man 3 it.
Yeah.
I think
we're so close. We're so close to Iron Man 3.
You Iron Man 3 it, and you just have it be like, obviously people don't like Iron Man 3 because there's not enough Tony in the suit and stuff like that, but I think that there is attention to him not turning into the Hulk for as long as he can, and it's something they haven't done, and obviously they probably feel that they have to kind of like, if you have Hulk, you probably have to have him show up as soon as he does.
Yeah.
And like Avengers, Hulk is there as quickly as he is. He's there quite quickly in Age of Ultron. He's literally the first thing you see in Thor Ragnarok when you see Bruce or Hulk and stuff like that. I just kind of wish they held back a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's tricky. Like, I don't know, maybe they should have just started making a high-budget TV show, like a mini-series or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, this opening act is significantly better than the rest of the film. Now, Mike Thomas previously mentioned likes to think this is like better than, these first 20 minutes are like better than like anything in the MCU or something like that. That's crazy talk. Let's calm down. let's walk it back. It's comparatively better than the rest of the film it's in, yes, but it's not like mind-blowing.
I would probably say it's one of the best Act 1s.
Yeah.
Of any Marvel movie that they've done.
But
I think it's definitely the most memorable because it's like actually different to the rest of the movie. Like a lot of the other MCU movies, they are a really good Act 1 and Act 2, but Act 1 and Act 2 are kind of like a single unit, and then the storytelling shifts in Act 3 into
1A and 1B.
Yeah.
I will say though, like encapsulated within this first act, their decision to condense the origin into the opening credits is a very good decision that they made. I think even in a world where Ang Lee's Hulk didn't exist, they probably could have gotten away with this because of how popular and sort of well-known Hulk is. Even if it's a brand new character they invented, maybe. I mean, I don't know, because you don't see Hulk in the opening montage. But still, the decision to sort of hit the ground running and say, right, he's already Hulk, we summed up his origin in like 90 seconds, is a really good one. And Spider-Man Homecoming, which we'll talk about in a long time, they do that as well. Like, he's already Spider-Man. And again, it's like, it's a soft reboot kind of thing. And I would like it if they did this a bit more. I don't know how many heroes really qualify for the treatment. Like, I can understand why you'd want to do a backstory on Iron Man because he was a fundamentally misunderstood, if not outright, like, unheard of character.
At this point, now that the Fox deal has happened,
yeah, officially,
I can see Fantastic Four or some X-Men getting this kind of treatment.
Yeah. My hope is Fantastic Four show up. They have been the Fantastic Four off in a corner somewhere for like.
I mean, there's all kinds of pictures you can do. There's the whole idea of them being the spaceship.
Yeah.
Goes at light speed, and they first back arrive on Earth, but they actually exist in the 60s. Is a popular idea that's kind of like bandied around and stuff like that. So they are time displaced from the 60s. You call back to the origins of Fantastic Four and stuff like that. But like, you could quite easily just have it be they show up, they've got powers, or they've done something somewhere else. And
so forget Incredible Hulk. We're just gonna pitch Fantastic Four movies for the next hour. No, but obviously you can't do this with every hero, but
no,
the fact they could do it here helps the film. It significantly reduces the runtime, despite the wishes of Ed Norton and Louis Leterrier, who wanted to do like a 2.5 hour film or something, and Marvel were like, no, you're going to make this brisk. As such, there's like 70 minutes of flashback footage that they filmed, and they wanted to pepper like flashbacks throughout the film, but it didn't do well in test screenings, so they just yanked that out and edited it together into the opening montage. The most notable missing scene is, so the beginning of this film was going to be Bruce journeys to the Arctic and attempts to kill himself, and in the background was going to be Captain America's frozen body.
Have you seen this scene?
Apparently it's not good.
No, it definitely isn't as explicit as you think it's going to be, based on like the way they describe it. It's very much like you have to freeze frame it, and then you go like, look, that little red and blue splodge is Captain America's shield,
which is also in Tony Stark's workshop.
Yeah, but that's got a reason to be there.
I do think that for everything not good about this movie, it's brisk. Like it does go by. It's one of the shorter movies. I actually have all the runtimes here. It is the joint shortest movie. Guess what the other joint shortest movie is?
Ant-Man.
Thor: The Dark World. And you know what? I'm going to say Thor: The Dark World probably had longer credits as well. So I think Incredible Hulk might be longer. You're going to so love talking about Thor: The Dark World with me. I do think giving it the short runtime helps, because especially when you get bogged down in the parts of this that are not good, like, you definitely don't want to lengthen it out. But I guess the argument was that it was going to do more with the characters and make it like a more mature. I don't know, but yeah, I do like that they're like, look, here's his origin. Here we go now. And I think that we do need to try and do that more.
It's a good move, and it's a move that you can't do all the time, but doing it here definitely helps the movie. Then the movie kind of shifts into a bog standard Hulk movie once you get out of Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah, giant fight scene, Hulk versus many vehicles, Hulk win. People relentlessly shoot Hulk, not realising it never works, and yet they continue to shoot Hulk. You know what, actually, it tied in with this opening act and this thing. They notably changed the origin of the Hulk, where it changes from being an experiment, like wasn't it like a nuclear test, and Banner like notices...
It's a nuclear test. It's a nuclear test. Rick Jones, perennial sidekick to Avengers, Hulk and whatnot, is out there. Banner pushes him into a safe pit.
A safe pit from radiation.
Yeah, gets a full dose of the radiation, and then becomes the Hulk.
So we go from an accident resulting from him being a fundamentally heroic person to... Right, so here's the thing. Thunderbolt Ross wanted to revive the super soldier program that gave us Captain America. And he brings in nuclear physicist and biochemist Bruce Banner. And somehow, according the dialogue as he explains it to Blonsky, is he managed to trick Banner into not knowing what he was working on. Genius, multiple PhD, Bruce Banner, with all his expertise, doesn't know that he's working on a thing that will make people ungodly strong and resistant and stuff. He thinks it's something to protect against radiation. I call bullshit on this. Like, how would he not know what... Those aren't even, like, remotely comparable traits, like being the Hulk and being resistant to... And the ultimate thing of this is that it goes from an accident to, like, he's a willing volunteer and it goes wrong. Like, Ed Norton removed Rick Jones from the script. I wonder if, like, originally they were going to do the accident thing and it went with him. I don't know. I just think that this... It's just bad. But it is a weird little tie-in, I guess, with the rest of the MCU.
But the thing is, it's a tie-in that doesn't even really make sense
with,
like, where the future of the MCU goes.
No. And it's like, what? Like, so Ross is trying to recapture Hulk, and he keeps saying, like, as far as I'm concerned, his body is government property and all this. It's like, sorry, you're looking at Hulk and thinking, positive results. Need to get him in here. We were almost there. Like... I just don't understand it. As a story where, like, he thinks that the Hulk is, sorry for the pun, but an abomination who is a danger to his daughter and is causing destruction and potentially death. That makes sense. Hunt him down, kill him, maybe capture him for science. But just changing it here where, like, Ross becomes mad scientist who tricked a genius and is still at it. It's like, what are we doing here? I hate that. So, like, that entire scene where he explains it to Blonsky, I was like, ah. Right. Hulk. The CG is mixed. He does not look good in the clear light of day.
I'm glad that they update the model in the 4 years between this and Avengers.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it's like the CGI is taking leaps and bounds, they use a different effects company to actually do it and stuff like that, but, like, it looks like a really good video game.
Yeah.
At certain points.
I mean, I read extensively about all the work they did on him to create this Hulk, but it's like, yeah, but it still kind of looks like trash, guys. Like...
I guess we're kind of spoiled in that we've just seen, literally in cinemas a while ago, the most fully rendered Hulk that we've yet to have on screen and stuff like that, and going back to almost a decade ago at this point, and what the character looks like. You are obviously going to see growth in CGI and stuff like that, and growth in mocap performance. But it still just doesn't... Good CGI is timeless.
Yeah.
Like, you can still go back and watch Jurassic Park and go, that looks really good.
Yeah.
But you can't necessarily watch this and go, like, yes, this is a seamless blend of computer-generated effects and character performance. And...
It's really tricky. Like, in the shadows at the beginning, it's kind of like, okay. Then you see him in full daylight, and it looks wrong. And then you see him at the end in that fight with Abomination where they look identical to each other because of the realistic lighting or whatever, and it looks somehow worse again. It's like, this is a film where every time I see the Hulk, he looks worse somehow. And he's got his floppy hair, and he seems a lot taller or like slimmer. I think Leterrier had this vision for Hulk as like... I mean, if it is meant to be tied in with the super soldier serum, it's like Hulk is supposed to be some like perfect human, but green, I guess. And I don't know, I prefer him as sort of gorilla-ish in a way, where he is more like animalistic than he is human. I think they refer to Ang Lee's Hulk as like Fat Hulk, and it's like, I know, like,
don't fat shame people.
I know, right? All I know is the version that has been in the MCU since this movie looks way better than this one. I don't like his floppy hair either. It's
emo Hulk.
Yeah. Alright, so Ed Norton. weird, right? Like,
I mean,
he's almost been erased from existence. Like, this movie is canon, 100%. It happened. Like, Mark Ruffalo makes comments about breaking Harlem and all of that, and yet
they make comments about breaking Harlem. There are characters from this movie who are in the MCU, like played by the same actors.
Yeah. But whenever I see this movie on TV or when I watched it for this, it's still very jarring seeing Ed Norton as Bruce Banner. Like, I
think he's fine.
Yeah,
I don't think he does a bad job. I think he is fine at what he does. I think he is in some ways miscast, but I can't tell whether or not I feel he's miscast because he's not Mark Ruffalo, or I can't tell if I feel he's miscast because of something the film actually does.
Is he better than Eric Bana?
I'd have to remember Eric Bana's performance to be able to comment on it.
I think he plays like
he plays the first scene, the kind of like undercover Heidi spy Bourne type thing really well.
But that doesn't really strike me as Bannery, you know?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah, it's...
I mean, I think he portrays like the anxious, sort of worrisome side of him pretty well. They obviously went in hard on trying to show his sort of remorse about it with the shower scene and everything like that. Some good old-fashioned nudity. But there's just... I think it's kind of missing like a big scene that sort of makes it his, if that makes sense. Like there's... Like I can point straight to that opening scene in Avengers with Hulk, and I'm like, oh, that's Ruffalo's forever now. Like he just erased Ed Norton from existence. And I don't know if Ed Norton was so worried about writing this film that just getting all these small details right and going back and forth on the appearance and all that he wasn't paying attention to just giving it that huge big scene. But I don't know.
It's that issue that, especially at this point where Hulk and Banner aren't being played by the same people.
Yeah.
Like, he isn't doing the mocap, he isn't doing the whole performance and stuff like that, and the movie's having to do that 50-50 split, so he isn't really playing both sides of the character.
Not voicing him either.
He didn't do mocap for it as well, did he?
Yeah, no, I know, I'm saying, like, he also didn't voice it as well.
Oh yeah, no, Lou Ferrigno is the Hulk. He still was the Hulk in Avengers.
I think they, like, mixed his voice with Ruffalo's or something, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that is kind of one of those important things where, like, it doesn't give you a fully rounded performance. It feels like these are the scenes with Banner, these are the scenes with Hulk, and they are entirely separate. Like, you never really get a feel that they are the same being, other than they are the same being, but it doesn't ever kind of coalesce into this kind of like central part of the movie, and it does kind of create that thing where, like, when Hulk is on screen, this is a different movie to when Banner is on the screen.
Yeah, and Ed Norton's off here making his weird Bourne spy movie.
Yeah, and outside of that first scene, I don't think either the kind of Banner romance movie, the Banner scientist movie, or the Hulk kind of action disaster movie is as interesting as what they were doing in that first scene.
I do want to talk about the whole controversy with him leaving, but I want to save that for the end, I think, really. So you mentioned the love story, and he is paired with Liv Tyler as Betty Ross. I don't believe that she is a scientific genius. I'm sorry, Liv Tyler.
Do you believe she's an elf?
Yes, I do. I believe that Steven Tyler would spawn an elf. So I watched it about a week ago because we had some scheduling issues. I thought, you know what? They kind of have good chemistry. They've got quirky little interactions. And then when I made my notes a couple of days ago, I was like, I cannot think of a specific instance that I'd be able to cite. So I threw in the DVD just before we started recording, and I rewatched some of these scenes. And I was like, right, what was it I was thinking of? Turns out none of it. Like, I don't know where I got that from.
I can only ever think, whenever there are, for some reason, like, certain things that I always remember from this movie, and there are 4 scenes that I would normally think of when I think of this movie. Mm-hmm. It is the first act in almost its entirety.
Yeah.
It is the fight on the university campus, mostly for the scene where Hulk boot kicks Blonsky into a tree. Which is one of the best moments in this movie.
Yeah.
And then it's the scene in the cave.
Yeah.
Like, that scene in the cave, for some reason, is in my head, even though I don't think anything really of interest happens in the scene at all.
No. I mean, like, what they're going for is, he's not mindless. Like, Betty can get through to him, and it's something they riff on with Scarlet Witch later, I feel. But, yeah, I don't know, just...
I mean, it does also include Hulk screaming at the sky.
Yeah, well... The scenes where she's talking to anyone other than Banner, she's really not good. I do think a couple of the moments where she's having these little cute little interactions with Banner, I think she's better at. Like, I think she sells the love story a bit. And that was the weird thing. Like, when they were doing all the promotion of this movie, they were like, right, it's a love story and there's a physical villain for him to fight. And it's like, these are two odd things for you to hang your hat on, but whatever. I don't want to go as far as to say she's, like, atrocious, but...
I think she's definitely of the kind of the first generation of love interests. She is the weakest.
Yes.
Of the 4 actresses that they cast, she is the weakest.
Yeah.
It is also noticeable that she's the only one that has not come back.
Yeah, but I wish Natalie Portman didn't come back.
But no, like, she's the only one that hasn't been invited back.
I don't know if that's entirely on her, though. Like,
no, but I do think that, like, there is... If she'd had the most amazing chemistry with something, like, people remembered her, she did something significant, they would have brought her back. Even if Iron Man 1 had been a complete failure and they had to recast Robert Downey Jr. because he'd relapsed or something like that. If Gwyneth Paltrow had acted everyone off the screen, Gwyneth Paltrow would have come back as Pepper Potts.
Yeah.
And I think that is the significant thing to remember with it, that he's they have brought Thaddeus Ross back at this point.
They had to. How else could they introduce the Accord?
But, like, they could have quite easily brought Liv Tyler back in some way, and they have not done that yet.
They could. Yeah, she's not amazing, is she? She is dating Ty Burrell in this film as Leonard Sampson, who would become Doc Sampson, allegedly, in a potential sequel. The green-haired, strong scientist man.
They do so much setup.
Yeah, they do. There's so many, like, future teasers.
There is no, especially in Phase 1, there is no Phase 1 movie that does as much setup for future pieces than this movie. Yeah. Like, Iron Man 1 has teases of the Mandarin and teases of War Machine and stuff like that. But, like, this movie explicitly casts 2 of Hulk's biggest and most iconic villains and does almost nothing with them.
Nope. So he, like, is barely in this film, but I think they deleted a lot of his scenes, but...
I mean, this is also a year before Modern Family started, so he's not Modern Family's Ty Burrell at this point.
No, he's not. He's your and my Ty Burrell. I do really like. There's a scene where after he tells on Bruce, and then Ross is, like, dressing him down afterwards. He, like, psychoanalyzes everyone, and, like, I can't remember the phrasing. Like, Ross says something like, where does she find these guys? And I was like, what? That support her right to make decisions? Oh my god, what assholes these 2 men are. That's, like, literally my only takeaway from Ty Burrell's performance, so that's good for him. Tim Blake Nelson as Samuel Stearns, who is the aforementioned Mr. Blue. Some of the weirdest delivery of some of the weirdest lines I've ever seen in my life. It's very jittery. I don't know if they were going for neurotic scientist, but... yeah, just something about the way he talks just doesn't sound like how a human would talk to anyone. But he was intended to be the leader in the sequel. The stuff drops on his head, and then it starts to balloon up and go crazy. The leader, man.
I mean, the leader is almost as difficult to do on screen as the Mandarin is. And they actually kind of go for an almost close to realistic comic version in this movie. Like, it's just bizarre what they do there. Like, they explicitly set up the leader at the end of this movie.
They do.
Like, there is the scene where is it just Banner's blood starts dripping on his head?
Yeah, that's it. Blonsky gets it in him and he becomes Abomination. It drops on Leader's head, and on Stearns' head, and he becomes the leader. Stanley drinks it. He just gets some gamma poisoning. Like, it goes in him. He digests it. And all it has to do is touch Samuel Stearns' head. But hey, not good. Not a good scene. Weird, like, you know, like he starts out like, oh, I'm helpful. Then the immediate penny drop of, but we can use this to do all these things. It's like, oh, so you just went for the easiest softball in the history of the world. Yeah,
like good. It's one of those kind, at this point in superhero movies, where they start to kind of shove a bit too much into them. And this movie starts to do a bit too much in terms of, like, introducing characters. Even with the only 2-hour runtime, it starts to just kind of be a bit much.
It does. Before we get to the villains in our famous segment, Villain Watch, there are a lot of cameos in here. We've mentioned some of them already. Lou Ferrigno plays a security guard, the world's worst security guard. Paul Soles, who voiced the Hulk in the 1966 cartoon, plays the pizza dude Stanley. Bill Bixby is sort of in it when Banner is watching TV at the beginning. Michael K. Williams plays a bystander because Ed Norton likes The Wire, I guess.
I got so excited when I saw that in cinemas and then realised it was going nowhere and was just like, what the hell was that?
It's like a Spider-Man film, this one, with all the famous people standing around. Martin Starr allegedly plays Amadeus Cho. He just gives Banner a thumbs up in a computer lab.
We'll get away from the awkwardness of that casting. Obviously, this was Hollywood in a different time when this kind of thing probably wouldn't have gotten headline news that they've cast the Asian American character as Martin Starr. But
when I look at Martin Starr, he screams Amadeus Cho.
He is not. He is definitely not Korean American.
No, he's not. Yeah, so they filled this thing. Like there's a trio of Hulk people and Stan Lee, and then you've got these other cameos. But now it's time for Villain Watch, which might have some sort of little musical stinger by the time I edit this. Who knows? So our main villain, William Hurt, as Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. This is campy as hell, cartoony as heck. Sam Elliott wanted to come back, and they cast William Hurt because allegedly no actor can go from 0 to 100 like William Hurt. Jeff Bridges can, and he did more so in Iron Man 1, but hey-ho. It's not great.
No, he's not the most memorable of performances. Like, he looks the role. Like, but from pure comic book level, he looks like what I'd imagine Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross to be, but like even in the comic books and stuff like that, Thaddeus Ross is one of the most one-note characters that you'll find in one of these movies. Where it's just like, we need to get the Hulk, and it's just like, or you can't be dating my daughter. Why? It's just oh my god, shut up and get away from this thing. Like
there's so little sense coming out of his mouth so frequently. It's like, what do you want, man? Like ultimately, yeah, it's not good. Like his claim is that he created a comic book faithful, like comic booky, graphic novel-y villain that allowed the monsters to seem more real because he is a human monster. I say he did not do that. I say he gave a bad performance despite being a good actor. As well as him, we have Tim Roth as Emil Blonsky, aka Abomination. Once again, we have the trend of British actors in American superhero movies saying things that no British person would ever say. The size of a softball, he says. Sorry, not a thing we say. In Justice League, I think the villain said something about it's going to destroy 8 blocks. It's like, nope, not a thing that we refer to our streets as, but hey. Tim Roth is in this movie as an incredibly like obsessed soldier. Like, I get what they're going for. Like, his desire to overcome his own aging, like he is this haggard soldier that has seen and done so much, and now he realizes, his body is beginning to fail him a bit, and he's now coming up against an opponent that just beats him constantly, kicks him into a tree. So I understand what they're going for there, but it just falls so flat, and he comes across so insane.
I really like that, though. I don't think I don't think Emil Blonsky is like the most interesting villain in any of these movies, but I just kind of like they go full on insane with it. Yeah. Like, I think there's a different version of this movie that you can make where you have the good soldier who genuinely just wants to like save the world and does something morally grey to kind of do it and becomes something far worse. I think that is an interesting take on the character. But the thing is, he is so insane. Yeah,
he actively wants to become the Hulk. It's like, no, what? Why would you want this?
But so before we watched it, you said that you were watching some scenes. I decided to go watch some scenes. So the scene I watched was the full 7-minute long fight scene, and it's just the bit where like Tim Roth is like prancing around, dodging Hulk carrying like pieces of car and stuff like that. And it's just like
car boxing gloves. Someone wrote that down and got paid money.
It's not good, but it is fun. And I think Tim Roth is the person having the most fun in this movie.
Probably, yeah.
And I think that goes a long way towards my enjoyment of it, is that like when he's on screen, I'm just like, I can enjoy this. I can enjoy the fact that Tim Roth has gone off the deep end and is doing, like, he's shooting something and nothing's really happening with it. and then he gets kicked into a tree.
Yeah. Yeah, as he's like giving it all that and shooting Hulk in the face and then just kicked into a tree.
So yeah, I like Tim Roth's performance for the most part because I think it does something to this movie that makes it enjoyable outside of that first act. And then Tim Roth fucks off for the final third of the movie.
Yeah, Abomination looks like fucking trash. Like, I don't understand what they were... His weirdly long neck that doesn't really move, and he's all just bones.
I mean, like, at this point, Warner Brothers were not making the DCEU.
He would fit right in.
But yeah, it feels like the executives at Warner Brothers decided to go like, how did Marvel make their first movies? They watched all of Phase 1 and then said, Incredible Hulk's the template we're going to follow. Yeah. Like, we are going to make this Act 3 in every single one of our movies.
Yes. Oh god, yeah, you're right. It's brown and orange, you can't tell what's going on, it's magically nighttime.
But even then, like, you look at the creatures that DC have been doing, you see Doomsday, you see Ares, you see...
What there, isn't it? Steppenwolf.
Yeah, and they all look like Abomination.
They do.
And it's like, why? Why? No one wants this. Like, no one talks about the Marvel villains. No one talks about the Marvel villains and goes, Abomination is top 5.
Right. He looks orange, he looks grey, he looks brown, he looks exactly like the Hulk at times.
But there's no personality to it, and there's no tension to it, because, like, Hulk's not going to lose.
Like, I know who Abomination is. Like, I've seen him. But I'm not hugely familiar with the origin. Now, he is traditionally more reptilian or amphibian looking with, like, weird, like, appendages. So given the route they were taking with this being them trying to replicate the Hulk, it makes sense for him to look more like the Hulk. But I look at what Abomination looks like on the page, and I look at this, I'm like, close.
I don't even think they made it close. They somehow managed to make it worse.
Yeah.
Like, again, like, there's this weird, like, the bone stuff where he's got bones coming out of his arm. It's like, you are literally taking an element of Doomsday from Superman to kind of, like, do your CGI villain. And no one should be doing that. No one should be taking the character that DC made for the explicit reason to kill Superman and didn't do any development beyond that. Like, this is kind of the ultimate rule of cool and moment for this kind of thing. And the thing is, it's not cool to watch pieces of CGI just kind of like punch
mush against each other.
Yeah, like there's no stakes to
I mean, Marvel do this as well, but not to the degree that DC do.
This is the most explicit one of these, just because Hulk is a CGI creation. So even when Iron Man is fighting the Ironmonger, like, there is still people in those, or there's still Robert Downey Jr. doing Snark. There is still Jeff Bridges hamming it up with some of the lines and stuff like that. It's not good, but it's better than what this movie becomes in its final third.
I mean, you're able to say, yeah, this is happening. But you look at this and you're just like, I'm watching a cutscene in a, like, mid-2000s video game.
Yeah, like, it's that thing where, like, every single time, again, to bring this point up again, like, every time I watch this movie, there is a flicker of hope in that first scene that this movie's going to be good.
And then you remember this scene at the end.
And then I remember this scene at the end where it's a good, like, 20 minutes long fight scene between these two as well.
I hate it so much. So yeah, Hulk bounces at the end of the movie. Do you know who else bounced? Edward Norton. Now let's talk about this, because immediately after...
Did Edward Norton bounce?
This is what I want to get into. So immediately after this film, they were talking about the future. Like, I think a direct quote was like, from Norton, the whole thing was to envision it in multiple parts. We left a lot out on purpose. The Incredible Hulk is definitely intended as Chapter 1. And there are disputes about whether he was under contract, whether he was, or not. Like, him and the director say he wasn't. It seems very like Norton and the director are on one side of every debate involving this film, and everyone else is on the other. But hey, he has claimed that he opted out because he didn't want to, just be known as the Hulk, etc. And, he's an actor's actor and he wants to go do proper films. But then that doesn't really gel with what he said about the future of this thing. All I can think is he met Kevin Feige, and these two men who have visions for what they want to do just did not get along very well.
Yeah, because you have to imagine that, like, Hulk was made without, like, Kevin Feige is an executive producer on it, but this is still when Avi Arad is around, kind of helping out with stuff. And you have to imagine that Universal had some more level of creative involvement that maybe created a buffer between Kevin Feige and Edward Norton and stuff like that.
And Feige's quote on choosing not to bring Norton back, which is a very choice way of saying that, Our decision is definitely not one based on monetary factors, but instead rooted in the need for an actor who embodies the creativity and collaborative spirit of our other talented cast members. That is a very flowery way of saying Ed Norton's a dick and he's hard to work with.
But also he did demand a lot of money, apparently.
Yeah, I hear they made him quite a small offer. But apparently Marvel do this. I think everyone aside from Robert Downey Jr. actually... I mean, I'm sure as they've gone on, they've commanded more pay, but the early contracts apparently were not high for most of them.
No, because, I mean, especially for Chris Hemsworth, it's like his first movie.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's fair.
I think it is, but then the fact that, like, when they got to like Avengers or Age of Ultron and they hadn't redrafted the contracts to pay them more, then you're like, come on, yes, you made them, but they are now these characters and you can't recast them. Like,
I think like Samuel L. Jackson's was like shockingly low for who he is and how many films they had him for. But
so this is the second big recasting that they do. The last significant one.
I mean, we will talk about Ruffalo when we come to the Avengers, but just
the next one that happens that's noticeable is Zachary Levi in Thor: Dark World. But that I think that's literally the last time that they actually do a recasting of any significance in one of these movies.
We will keep track.
Do you miss him?
No, not at all. I think, like I said, I think from the first scene with Ruffalo, and I mean maybe not when he's just being a doctor, but that conversation with Black Widow, he snatched this part from Edward Norton. I'm not going to say which actor is better. Like that's a redundant process, but. Again, we will talk about it in the future. Like it's an unlikely casting, but he has been the Hulk since that scene for me. And as I said, when I watch Edward Norton in this role, it's very jarring. Like for how good he is in certain moments of it, and as good of an actor as he is generally, it's a weird sort of asterisk on the MCU where this film is 100% canon, but they've recasted the lead. And
it's also an interesting one because Disney don't own the rights to it. It never ends up being promoted in the same way.
No, I mean,
like you see sales of these movies going on in on websites and in stores and stuff like that, and you never see Hulk racked with them. Hulk doesn't have the same box art. He doesn't have the same kind of like design to it. He doesn't have that lovely painted cover with all the cast kind of looking pensive and all the rest of it that they do for all of these movies.
It's like they're trying to hide it, you know?
Yeah, like it's the only one I don't actually own on Blu-ray. And so when we said that we were going to be doing it, I was just like, oh God, how am I going to watch this? Like, luckily, like it's not that expensive to buy, but the fact that I don't own it says a lot to me about my urge to watch it.
Now, I saw Iron Man 1 and 2. I then saw the Avengers. I think the moment I got out of watching the Avengers, I ordered this and Thor on DVD. And boy, was I disappointed by this. But I will say, like, God, I went to see the Avengers again with my girlfriend. And I wanted to, like, give her the crash course. I was like, I'm not going to make you watch all 5 movies before we watch Avengers. But there is one big takeaway that you need from The Incredible Hulk. And it's that final scene where he deliberately transforms into Hulk. And I think that gets forgotten as quite an important thing because, you know, a big scene in the Avengers is, that's my secret, I'm always angry or whatever. And I have always directly pinned those two moments together and been like, because this, and, you know, when he deliberately becomes Hulk, he's less aggressive. So that, to me, is the legacy of this film. Edward Norton bounced, and Hulk can deliberately be Hulk.
It's a fantastic moment that we will spend a lot of time on when we get to Avengers. But in Incredible Hulk, it's a weird moment to end the movie on.
I think they said that it was potentially leaving the door open for, he can't control it, and therefore he's the villain in the Avengers.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that being what the plan is.
Well, we have spent far more time on this than it needed, because the summary is, I'd say it's the worst film in the MCU.
It's in the bottom 3. Like, I would not begrudge anyone moving it around.
Right, well, okay, I kind of skipped over this, but in every movie we will be nominating and a remarkable performance so that we can do that.
Well, I feel like we definitely covered it in Iron Man, in that...
It's Robert Downey Jr.
It's Robert Downey Jr.
Is anyone giving a noteworthy performance in this, or are we going to bank a performance to use for later?
I want to bank a performance. There's no one in this movie that's, like, memorable. Like, even if Edward Norton was doing, like, really good work as Hulk, it's not what the Hulk becomes. I wouldn't even want to use it then.
No. Okay, so we have two. We have a spare one to play with.
If we find a movie with two great performances in.
Yeah.
We can use it then.
And how does this work? Like, is Robert Downey Jr. eligible in every film he's in?
I think you can be nominated multiple times, but I do think it should be against you. Yeah. It should be against you because I mean, there's only one choice for the two Thor movies, really, and I will nominate him both times. Okay. But
wow, it's really weird that you think Kat Dennings is a man. Anyway. We also forgot to do good third act, bad third act. But no, we did. We talked about it. It's a bad third act.
It's a bad third act.
I'm trying to have regular segments, and I forgot.
I know, but everything kind of melded into one. Basically, we got onto Abomination. It was just like, oh my god, this is so bad.
Okay, well, look, everyone, it's a rough movie. Therefore, it's been a rough podcast. So I promise we will return to a vague formula next time when we cover Iron Man 2. How excited are you, Ben?
I am so excited to be discussing Mickey Rourke's Russian accent.
Well, I'm going to watch Rockwell doing his dancing, so I'm happy.
I'm actually relatively excited to watch Iron Man 2 again. I know I will have a similar reaction. I will have a similar reaction to it when I do this movie, where there's good moments. I'll go maybe I'll enjoy it more this time.
And then he invents an element for 20 minutes. See you next time, guys.